Hello and welcome to the Animation Industry Podcast. My name is Terry, and today I got two back-to-back rejections for my Waste World TV show pitch, which also won the big pitch competition at the Taffy Conference recently. So it's been a lot of ups and downs for me lately. Today I'm chatting with Brian Kouhi, a Toronto CG animator who's originally from Iran, who has animated on crazy projects like Maya and the Three, Abby Hatcher, Paw Patrol, and Alien TV. But besides all of this, he also runs a very successful YouTube tutorial channel called 3D Animation Hub, where he breaks down how to animate in CG, including character posing, how to apply motion capture, and must-know tips to increase your animation speed, as well as how to become financially stable throughout your animation career. All of which he also reveals in our chat. Now, on top of this, he is also launching a Blender animation learning platform called TOAnimate, which comes out on December 15th. So if you're starting out in CG and would like to learn through Blender, or you need to get caught up to speed quickly on how Blender works, check out TOAnimate, TOAnimate.ca, and sign up for his monthly free tips and course launch notifications. So now, without further ado, let's jump into the chat. Hi, Brian. How are things?
Great. How are you, Terry?
I'm great. We're chatting. I'm great. You're great. Everything's great. Tell me how being an immigrant from Iran, let's just get into it.
Let's get into it. All right.
Affected, your career as an animator and a 3D animation artist, etc.
Sure. So escaping the war. No, I'm just kidding. There was no war. But I like we were talking about before we started recording a little bit. It wasn't necessarily the country I came from that affected just how I'm going about life and my career choices and whatnot. Just the fact that, I'm a child of immigrants, and I came here around when I was 11 or not to 11. Yeah. Usually how that story goes is your parents want you to become an engineer or a doctor or a lawyer or disowned, it's you got four options. So it was a little bit harder at first to get them to convince me to pursue art, just because they have that like immigrant mentality, and they want you to be successful, and they took risks for you and whatnot. So it felt like I had a lot of pressure, but at the same time I wasn't doing too well in classes because I was just drawing all the time, and I wasn't paying attention, and I was just filling up sketchbooks left and right. And yeah, I think it just became clear to them that, just school wasn't what I was passionate about. All the stuff you were learning in school, it was more art. And so we went through a little convincing period. And then my dad pretty much just said, you know what, pursue art. And if it doesn't work out, then you can come back and do something that we want you to do. Just because he said, if we tell you to do something, you're not happy, you'll blame us. So, do what you want to do. And if it doesn't work out, then you can come back.
Okay. So you moved here when you were 12. So that's grade 6.
Yeah.
And then basically the rest of your schooling years, you're setting yourself up to go to university, essentially.
Pretty much. By the time I learned how to speak English, it was pretty much just oh yeah, what college you want to go to? I'm like,
Right. So you had a lot of pressure to go into engineering or something, and you just decided not to. What? Because of the art thing. But I'm wondering, when was your dad convinced? Was it in high school, or were you already
I think it was around grade 11 or 12 is when he gets really serious about where you should be going. And so it's just the option of animation, the option of art wasn't really an option back home, right?
Yeah.
And so they kind of had to evolve or just they had to go through another level of understanding to realize that art could be a career here, because it wasn't before for them.
So you went to Sheridan College.
Yes. So I actually went to OCAD University first.
Okay.
Yeah. So straight out of school, I went to OCAD University, and that's where I got my bachelor's, majoring in animation. And then after OCAD University, I went to Sheridan's postgraduate program for animation, which was intense. If anyone's thinking of going in there, It's worth it. It's worth it, but you're not going to sleep much. I'll tell you that much.
How many years is their postgrad?
The postgrad is 1 year, but I think I could be wrong, but I think it used to be 3 years. And now
So
they fit 3 years into one. So you can
oh,
imagine
dang.
how that goes. Yeah.
So you did, and so after high school, you did 5 years of animation schooling, and were you still having to convince your parents through those 5 years, or were you like
I still have to
excelling in
convince my
grades?
parents.
Like,
I still have conversations with my mom sometimes where she's like, "Are you sure you don't want to be a doctor still?" And I'm like,
because you can.
I'm doing great, mom. Don't worry." Like it's yeah. So, but no. So during my OCAT times, I don't know what I can and can't say, but it wasn't for me. And
Okay, you can say that. Okay,
yeah,
so you're sitting at home, you're working as a 3D animator, you've got like you started an animation school, you have this YouTube channel that's really successful in teaching others Blender and stuff. Do you feel like you've arrived now? Like how, like it's no, you're like you're like, I'm still in my infancy.
yeah. I think okay, so I think again, like as we're talking, I'm making connections in my head of why I'm doing things or I've done things, and I think because of the pressure I had from my parents' side, on their definition of success is like here, and like art is like down here, and I think what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to reach a point where it's like clear that I'm successful in what I'm doing. Clear to them that it's like what I'm doing.
So, well,
And
that's interesting to me. So how many years have you been professionally animating now?
I think a little over 4 years now.
Okay, so you've been professionally animating for 4 years. You have a degree and a postgrad in this subject, and you're trying to reach a state where your parents will see your career as a success.
Yeah.
So, okay, so
maybe
this is
I'm not
twofold because
it.
you want to specifically animate,
right,
to like fulfill the internal thing in yourself.
Yeah.
But you want to animate in a way that they see as successful.
Okay, maybe no, I don't think I'm explaining this right. So I'm not doing what I'm doing just because of them, but I feel like because of the pressure they created during my upbringing, I'm trying to reach a level that's higher than just like just animating. I don't know how to explain it. Like,
so okay, so let's imagine you've reached success. What does that look like? Is it a monetary thing? Is it like a business thing? Is it a control your career thing?
So for me, I love animation.
Yeah.
I do. But my brain is kind of like split into, I'm like 50% animation, 50% business. Like I have very, very high interest in business. And like all the books I read are self-improvement and financial books. And I don't know. I have a thirst on that side as well. I don't know if that's just I just have that, or if it's because of my upbringing and my parents like wanting me to go into like that kind of like profession. I don't know what it is, but I have it. And so animation fills up half the bar. I'm kind of looking to fill up the other half as well.
I mean, this is all I think about, period, because like I have my whole business career background, and like that was very fulfilling, but it wasn't it was fulfilling in different areas. Like it was what I considered societal success and success in career, et cetera, but it wasn't like internally fulfilling with what I was creating in the world. So like constantly I'm thinking about how can I, merge my business background with animation, because I also foresee kind of myself as having more control over the creative projects that I create. And also like, I'm 33 and like, I want to have a house one day and maybe retire one day. And like, I'm just starting out as an animator now. So I feel like I'm always trying to figure out how can I make like a, passive revenue stream through like animation, or like, how can I have control over my own career, et cetera, and these things. And like, creating courses is one way to do that, and setting up a school. So I think that's really cool that you're doing that. So would you say this desire to have this definition of success that incorporates business and animation is so that you can have more control over your life, or is it like I'm just trying to understand the underlying motivation.
Yeah, I wish I do too.
Because
I think it is for sure, for sure. So I love animation. I'm just not the biggest fan of working in a production
yeah,
and animating, because you're constantly have a fire under your butt, and
totally.
you're not always working on a project you're passionate about. Now, in my last project, Maya and the Three, that was something that everybody working on it was very passionate about it, just because the director was amazing, and
I had him on this. I had him on this podcast.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. But like, you know how energetic he is.
Oh, he's
Like,
amazing. Yeah, we're
rubs
talking
off
about
on
Jorge
you.
Gutierrez.
Yeah, every time you come out of an interview with him, you're just like pumped up. You're like, let's go.
Yeah,
let's do this.
he's fantastic, guys.
Yeah.
Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like a I don't want to say a rare case, but that's a case that doesn't happen too often, where you're actually like looking forward to working on your shots. You're like, ooh, what shots did I get next? That doesn't happen very often, I don't think. But so I like having control over the projects you're working on, and over your artistic output. And like I want to fulfill that. I want to fulfill that artistic need, but like under my rules, like on
Totally,
what I want to do. I want to do what I want to do.
Well, because when you're in a production, I mean, not in a bad sense at all, but you're a cog in a machine, right?
Yeah,
like you're one
100%.
part of this massive production where you can create big things. And not to say that, your life becomes less stressful once you're ownership of that. It probably becomes more stressful.
Yeah.
But for me, like the reason I'm pursuing this like business side of plus animation is because I want to have my own creative voice infused in what I'm and I guess the projects I'm doing. Like I would love to, direct my own commercials and shows and things like that. And I've worked as an animator and I love it, but it's also like you're working on somebody else's vision. So the whole time I'm animating, I just think about like, I want to do the best job for this animation and like make it this person's dream come true. But also I wish this was the thing that I had thought of, and I have like so many ideas I'm playing around with. So like,
100%.
Yeah, for me, it's like wanting to control that career path, I guess, and aspiring to do that. So I think that's really cool. So like, so you have kind of a couple of side businesses, your YouTube, you have 3D Animation Hub teaching, and then you're launching a new animation learning platform, which I want to talk about. But can we just say, like, project yourself into the future where you've quote unquote made it? What does that look like versus what you're doing right now? Because you're animating full time, and then spending every second of your spare time setting up these other things.
Yeah. So right now it's like, okay. I'm just gonna like start back here, like make my way to the projection.
Yeah. Sorry, I tend to ask everything at once.
No worries. So coming I'll start with why 3D Animation Hub happened. So during university and like in high school, I was interested in animation. I would always make those like little sticky note animations, like the flipbook animation.
Yes, of course. Always. You have a whole page, you have a whole stack of Post-it notes, and then they just become a ball bouncing over time.
Exactly. So I was really interested in it, and just trying to get in contact with or learn about the industry, the 3D animation industry. It just seemed like just voodoo magic, Yeah. You hear someone who's like an animator, like, oh my god, that person's an animator, like I wonder what their life is like. And it was just, there was no 3D animation channels. There was not too much information online, and I was just so curious about it. And it was just this nothingness and I couldn't find anything about. So I was hoping OCAD would teach me a thing or two. It didn't, but I had heard amazing things about Sheridan, so I applied there for the postgrad, and that's when I started learning things. And as I'm learning, as I'm there, I'm working my butt off, sleeping under the desk, I'm like, holy crap! Like, the possibilities are endless with 3D. I wish I knew this when I was in high school. I wish I could, or I wish I could like teach my younger self this. I wish I could teach my younger self that, and like that. I think that's when the idea of a channel came to my head. I was like, oh, maybe after Sheridan, when I'm working, I can put like both experience and like my knowledge of like working at Sheridan, or sorry, learning at Sheridan. Maybe I can combine those two and like make tutorials from like both perspectives. And I think that's when the idea got created. And then like a year or so, year and a half afterwards is when I started the channel, I think. And then, sorry, right, to continue your question. So projecting myself into the future. For the past few years, I've been starting things that I knew would take years to like see any sort of like return or any sort of like not monetary like necessarily, just so you can like tangible return, so you can like visually see that there's progress and there's stuff happening. So right now I'm at a point where all this stuff is slowly starting to meet, and I'm starting to see some like progress in like different streams of like the investments I've been making, for example, of time and effort and money. I'm my 10-year plan is to retire. Now, when I say retire, I don't mean just go to a beach and like sip on a martini. I mean not work full-time at a production at a company anymore. And I'm hoping to be financially at a point where I can work on my own projects, or I can go full-time YouTube and full-time TOAnimate, and pursue my own businesses rather than work in a production.
So like, let me reiterate, I guess.
Sure.
You're working towards a state where you're supporting yourself through teaching animation.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you mean when you're working on your own stuff? Are you creating short films for fun? Or are you just doing little, like, tell me what that looks like.
Yeah. So for sure, like short films is one. Like my aim is to not be restricted by finance and be able to just output whatever I want. And, I've always wanted to create a game, and I have tried in the past, but I just don't have the time to dedicate to it. But, if I wasn't working full time, I could dedicate some of that time, or, all that time to making the game that I've been wanting to make for the last
like a mobile
5-6 years, like a mobile app, or but I had some bigger ideas, which I tried and failed, but short films and games, I've always wanted to make a game. So that's like something I do want to pursue, but I just don't have the time for it at all.
I love how you're like, I don't have the time for it, but then you're like setting up like a whole bunch of side businesses and stuff.
It's like it's
but I know what you mean. You need time to like experiment and fail and successes, and because it's like a whole different learning platform versus like right now you're capitalizing on what you already know and turning that into kind of revenue streams, which I think is really cool. So maybe, okay, so you're a full-time worker. Tell me about your new learning platform and how that started. You've mentioned it a couple of times. Tell me about it.
Sure. So TOAnimate is is what we're creating. It's
called TOAnimate.
It's called TOAnimate. So that's TOAnimate. TO sort of stands for Toronto, which is where I'm located, but also TOAnimate. Just TOAnimating. And
I like it.
Yeah. It was actually a friend of ours came up with it, and we were like, what? That actually doesn't sound bad. It has like a double meaning. That's great. And we stole it. So essentially, the reason why TOAnimate exists and what it is that when we started working on Maya and the Three, which is a Netflix epic that just came out a few days ago or a week ago, when we started working on that, it was done completely in Blender. I should probably mention that. Like the entirety of the film was done in Blender, from like modeling to, I don't know about texture, but like animating and rendering and simulation and everything. When we started on that production, most of the people working had no idea how to use Blender, like at all, including me. There was.
You're familiar with 3D Max, or?
We were familiar with Maya, with Autodesk.
With Maya?
Yeah. Okay. And that's the industry standard now. Right. But there's more and more companies switching to Blender and starting to integrate Blender, and like you see it, it's at like an exponential growth point right now. If it's an S curve, we're like right here on the bottom of the S, right? So just get ready in the next few years. So when we were working on Maya, there wasn't a proper, like there wasn't an introductory period where, or there wasn't a plan, or I don't know, lessons or anything by the studio, proper lessons that would teach you all the things you needed to know.
So the studio's like, hey everybody, we're working in Maya right now.
Yeah.
We have this show coming called Maya and the Three, unrelated to the Maya we're working in.
Done in
But we're
Blender.
switching to Blender, and we're not gonna give you any tutorials. You just have to start working in Blender.
Right. There were some tutorials, but it was for a previous version of Blender. And
The tutorials we're giving you are irrelevant. So
right,
good
exactly,
luck.
pretty much. Yeah. So when I think on my first 2 weeks, they told me to watch. I don't know if you're familiar with Blender Guru.
Yeah.
But he's a modeler, you know. He's like, I was there modeling donuts as an animator to try and learn the program, and I was like, what, like, come on, like, how does this help me? So like the idea came in my head that, oh, maybe I should document, like, as I'm learning this program, as I'm learning to animate with this, like, this could be helpful. I'm gonna start documenting what I'm learning. And you know, like, at first it was just so I can like help other people starting, other like coworkers and whatnot starting, just so I can like make something and give it to them. But it just kind of like it grew, and it just became so much. And then fast forward a year and a half into production, I'm still learning stuff. I'm still learning things that I probably should have learned like within the first couple of weeks. That would have saved me like hours and hours and hours of work. And I was like, this is insane. Like, we're a year and a half into production, I still didn't know this thing that I should have known. And so I think that's around the time I talked with my girlfriend, who also worked at Tangent Animation, which is the company we were working at. And we brought in a third partner, Vladimir Mokov. And some of you guys might know him from his Rocket Girl rig. It's a Maya rig and Rocket Girl. It became this like popular rig, and he's the genius behind it. But anyways, him, my girlfriend Simona, and I decided to create TOAnimate. We're like, okay, let's like, you know, jot down some ideas and create some lessons that would take someone from not knowing Blender at all, and let's say they're coming from Maya, they know animation, they don't know Blender at all. Let's bring that person up to speed to a, you know, a year and a half plus of production, like in like, and that's something they could probably do in like, if they dedicate themselves in like 2 weeks, they could get up to speed in 2 weeks and just pretty much know everything they need to know to be as proficient as possible.
Yeah.
And then we're like, why don't we take it one step further? So we're like, okay, let's make it another package that takes someone who doesn't know animation and get them up to speed with animation with Blender, since Blender is free. And another reason that this actually happened, this all happened, is because Maya took away their student licenses. Well, sorry, no, they didn't take away their student license, but they made it that you have to be a student to use their student licenses, which makes sense. But like, realistically, people, hobbyists, or like people that were outside of school,
you're screwed unless you're paying $12,000 to go to a school.
Yeah, or pay $12,000 a year to use the program, which is pretty much
right.
How much
What's the difference?
Yeah. So it just made no sense. I was like, that's like 95% of the people that use the student version are like hobbyists or people trying to learn that aren't in like official schools. You know, if you're in a third world school, like, what, you're not going to have access to this, right? So I was like, okay, well, like, Blender makes sense. It's up and coming.
Maya's like, how can we help more people get on Blender? Let's take away our student licenses.
That's what we're thinking. Like, are they trying to get?
I'll have a Maya exec on this podcast next to explain.
That's gonna be great. That's gonna be great. I actually talked with one as well. They were like asking why I switched to Blender, and it, like, what would it take for me to like switch back, and I was like, not having not be like $3,000. I don't know.
Crazy. Okay, is there not something on YouTube or courses you can take already that take you from scratch to, you know, junior animator in Blender already?
Yeah. So there's a lot of content on YouTube, and the issue with content on or free content is lack of structure. Usually when you take courses, you have some sort of confidence in the person that made the course. You have confidence in them to make the course in like a way where you actually go from not knowing anything and gradually work your way up. If you're just following YouTube tutorials, there's stuff you're not going to know. There's stuff you're not going to know that you don't know. And
Yeah,
that
you're
was the
just
issue.
like, how do I make a donut in Blender? And
Right,
you
right.
watch that tutorial, but it doesn't help you learn how to texture. And then you're like figuring
Yeah,
whatever.
and you
So
might not even know what texturing is or what questions to ask. And I'm speaking from experience here because I did try to learn 3D animation from YouTube, and I learned some stuff. I learned, oh, these are controls. Oh, these are bones. Let's make an action scene. There was no in between. I was like, okay, what's the next step?
Yeah. What about courses like Animation Mentor or like TOAnimate.net and stuff like that? Like,
Yeah.
are you creating something similar, or is like yours?
So right now with what I forgot to mention, I'm all over the place. Sorry. For TOAnimate, we're hoping to pre-launch it on Kickstarter in December.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yes, yeah. So it's not out yet. It's in the making. And if you're part of the Kickstarter, you kind of get behind the scene access and you help us develop it. You can make suggestions. You have access to everything before anyone else can purchase the course. So you can help build it be like what you need it to be. But what we're making right now is sort of an in-between. It's we're making something where you can make your very first demo reel, and it's at a lot more affordable cost than some of the other schools.
They're expensive. Yeah.
Yeah. They're in the thousands of dollars for like a single workshop. Like ours is going to be under $1,000 for all the packages. So it's going to be like a more affordable option if you're getting started. But we are planning to hopefully in the future, once we see the demand and see how it's doing, we're hoping to expand it into an actual animation school where, like Animation Mentor, like iAnimate, where you have instructors from Sony, from Pixar, from Disney coming in and hosting classes. And we're hoping to get to that point, but we do want to keep it Blender. So we have some figuring out to do.
Yeah, this is amazing and super ambitious.
We'll
so this is like kind of your answer to figuring out your that big career question we talked about before.
Right. Because I get excited about this stuff. I wake up early morning and I'm like let's do this. What can I work on like TOAnimate today before starting work?
So how far out is the Kickstarter then, the launch?
When is it, or how far along is it?
When is it?
Oh, December 15th.
December 15th.
Yeah. We had to move it a month back just because we're working on a cinematic for it right now, and it's burning up a lot of time. So once the Kickstarter is done, I think there's about like 2 or 3 weeks before all the transactions and everything's complete, because like we won't even get anything or have access to anyone's information until a few weeks after the Kickstarter is over. So a few weeks after the Kickstarter is over, we'll be giving out I should back up here for a second. So we have 3 packages: Blender Basics, Animation Course, and Mentorship. And Blender Basics is basically for people that already know animation and just want to learn Blender for animation. So once the Kickstarter is over, 3 weeks afterwards, Blender Basics will be available. It'll be completely done. But the animation course won't be done yet. That'll get done in parts in the next few months.
Nice. Yeah. Okay, so maybe
it's getting confusing.
This sounds very straightforward. Actually, I'm trying to figure out how to ask the next question, because I don't want to like grill you and make you like put on the spot. But I'm wondering, you're a full-time animator, a 3D animator, worked on some really cool things. You have a YouTube channel that has 1.5 million views.
Views. Okay, I was like subscribers. You
got
me mixed up. Yeah, 1.5 million views.
And you're posting videos like once a week, etc. And now you're launching this course thing. How do you expect to, bring in students? Like, because just having a course is great, but how are you, going to compete with everybody else?
Right.
I was going to say clients, but students, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, because I guess my thoughts are, animation is amazing, but the business aspect is rarely thought about by artists, and how to control their career and what to do to, allow themselves to have a break once in a while from the constant grind, which I think you're doing, and it sounds amazing. So like, what is your plan for, you have this Kickstarter? How are you even attracting people to the Kickstarter? And then once it's finished, how are you building up your student base? You're like, I already have my wheels are already turning in my head, but I want to hear what you have to say.
Sure. So I try to really take my time with this. The idea has been brewing for TOAnimate for like not TOAnimate particularly, just like with an animation course. It's been like kind of like brewing in my head for like a couple of years now. And I didn't want to do it too early, and I didn't want to do it too late. And once Maya and the 3 happened, and the whole thing with Maya, the program, happened, I was like, okay, this seems like the perfect time to switch to Blender and just like pursue that. And it seems like the perfect time to actually launch it. And so I started collecting an email list of people interested in the course months ago, like 5 to 6 months ago. Before it was just a survey on my channel, and then it turned to a website landing page. And I've slowly been building that email list. And what we do to incentivize people is, well, it's free to sign up for the email list, but also once a month, we send them a free animation tip. And so we make this cool infographic with like an animation tip. And so once a month, they get something like for free every month that they can just look at for like a few minutes, like, oh, cool, I didn't know that. And then once a month, we gave them updates on the course and what's been done so far. I give them some cool visuals, what we're working on, what we're planning to work on, so they can stay up to date with that. So we try not to spam them. So it's like 2 emails a month. You know, it's not
It's
crazy.
only valuable stuff. It's
Exactly.
not like, exactly.
So we're not trying to like just spam people with stuff. We're just trying to be as informative as we can and give as many like free information as we can. So that's one thing we've been doing. Another thing is just me mentioning it on my channel, and hopefully like my channel growing over time. That's 2 streams of ways that we can get students for the course, or get people interested, or just notify them about the course. Also, so there is, I'm not sure if you're familiar with what an animation picker is.
An animation picker?
Yeah. So for like, so in animation, you have your character, in 3D animation, you have your characters controllers all over the character, right? You got hundreds of controllers on the face, hundreds of controllers on the body. And when you're posing the character, you have to constantly turn off those controllers to see what your posing looks like sometimes. So what a picker does is that you can map out all your controls, character controls, on a 2D surface on a separate window. And so you can easily select what controller you want to select and not have any of your controllers on the 3D view. So it just gives you like a cleaner view and a faster workflow. So Maya has Anim School Picker, and it's become like the picker that everybody uses. And like, I think recently they've decided to go paid though, because it was free before. But Blender doesn't really have the picker, right? And so for the past 5 months, we've been working on an add-on, a 3D animation picker add-on. I hired 2 developer friends of mine, one for C# and one for Python. So my C# friend covers like the app part of it. It's creating like a separate app. And then my Python friend covers the integration with Blender, because Blender uses Python. So we connect the app into like have it communicate with Blender. So it's like a separate app altogether. So we can make it look cool and stuff. But yeah, so we're hoping to release the beta around our Kickstarter. And
it's going to be called TOAnimate Picker.
That's right, TOAnimate Picker. And it's going to be free. That's our aim. Like, if you're part of the Kickstarter, you'll have early access. You have access to the beta, so you can give your feedback and help improve it. But afterwards, we are hoping to make it free. And it is going to say, TOAnimate Picker, and there'll be a little banner in the bottom, hopefully not too intrusive, just saying, hey, if you want to learn animation, you can like head over to TOAnimate.ca, just as a like branding. So we're trying to give back to the community, and especially Blender community, which is like very focused on like open source, which we're also thinking of making it open source as well, the add-on. But yeah, we're trying to like give, and then hopefully when we take, we're also giving like twice as much as we're taking. That's our
So
That's our
you're,
goal right now. Yes.
I love all these answers, especially email lists. I think that's super smart. I mean, that's the world I come from is, SaaS marketing, et cetera, landing pages, blah, 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 give away free resources. So you're being very strategic about how you're building basically an engine that takes people from like awareness of who you are into, possibly conversion of your course, I guess. I think that's super cool. And yeah, what if what about like Google ads and like Facebook ads and Instagram ads and like
Yeah,
all that jazz? Is that
that
also on your mind too?
that will definitely be happening as well. I'm
So
thinking, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, what if you put in all this effort and you're grinding away and things don't go so well, like you realize somewhere down the 2-year mark that it's not happening or something like that. Like, what does that look
I,
like?
now you caught me on off guard. Um,
There's no
it's
plan B.
there is well, it depends.
No, I'm not
I'm not sure.
criticizing you. I'm just interested.
Yeah, no, for sure. I'm not sure if there. I feel like it depends on what goes wrong. Would it be like a lack of students coming in? Would it be because we're I'm hoping I'll be able to adapt to whatever happens.
Yeah.
I'm hoping I can because I'm planning to like I'm going to make this work no matter what. I'm going to figure it out. But you're right, like 3 years down the line, if it's 3 years and crickets, then I would have to kind of like reevaluate and
Yeah.
figure out which direction to go after.
Well, I love your attitude. And like, I don't know, just in the short chat we've had, it makes sense to me. Blender is up and coming. Tons more students or studios are using it. So that means more people need to learn it. The animation industry is getting bigger. There's so many more students around the world. You're creating an affordable, like fast track option to get a junior demo reel ready for somebody who takes it. It's inevitable that you should, be part of whatever the success of Blender and future of Blender is. Like you're doing your best to like integrate yourself as like a key learning portion of people who use Blender, I guess. That's really cool. And you've already seen a lot of success on your YouTube channel. If we're counting just views as success, I think that's awesome. And your email list, et cetera, et cetera. That's really cool. I'm super excited about this. Why did you choose like, have you ever thought about because a lot of artists see independence as building up their art, I guess, if that makes sense. So you have like Instagram artists who have like millions of followers and they, take on big clients to animate for them, or they like sell their artwork or they like, work on commercials and stuff like that. Why did you choose to take, or have you ever considered taking that kind of path where, you become like a super well-known artist for his unique style and is like contracted to take on cool projects for like magazines and I don't know?
That's a really interesting question.
Because you're taking a very business,
yes,
non-artistic approach to creating an artistic freedom for yourself in the future.
Yeah. No, you're making a you're asking a very good question.
Sorry, I'm just going to keep talking for a minute.
sorry, go ahead.
The reason I'm asking this is because I reached this kind of dilemma myself when I was in my business career. Because I was like, I'm doing successful in this business career for myself, but the things I want to work on, I realized that, when I always thought, when I retire, then I can finally start animating and doing the things I want to do. And then I realized like, why the fuck would I wait another 15 years to do, or however many years there's going to be to do that? Why don't I just work on that now? And then by the time I was planning to retire, I'll just be doing those things that I aspired to do when I finally retired, when probably I don't have the energy or mental state or learning capacity to take on these projects. So for me, like, I'm trying to focus really hard on like my personal style, like making connections that I can like, all this other stuff versus like the more business path, which I took before. So like, is this something you ever considered, I guess?
Yeah, no, that's good on you. Good on you for not waiting until retirement to.
Well, because you said you want to work on short films in a game
Yeah.
in the future instead of now,
I'm hoping my future isn't like, when I say future, it isn't that far into the future. I'm thinking like within 10 years. And I'm in my 20s currently, so hopefully I'll be probably around like mid mid-ish
You'll be
30s.
my age.
A little bit older, but
Okay.
you know, and I hope by then I'll be in a place that I say hope, but I'm planning. It's planned with a hope.
Have you
Um,
talked to other people who own kind of similar learning platforms as what you're trying to create?
I I haven't. Um, I've talked with. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Pierrick. He has a channel, a YouTube
Hmm.
channel with 50,000 subscribers, who
Okay.
also teaches Blenders, just Blender things and also Blender animation. He does rigging and animation, I think. So he's just made a very successful Blender animation course, and I haven't gone too far into detail with him, like with conversations, but it should be something that I do. I should reach out to some of these people who have done what I'm hoping to achieve and who have been successful with it,
Yeah.
and ask them questions that.
Well, I'm just wondering, like, what if you get caught up in the grind of, running your own business, which is also like a huge
Mhm.
takes your full time too. But of course, the upside is you end up controlling your path and get a lot more financial freedom to do the things you want to do, which I think
Yeah,
is amazing. So
yeah. I've so to answer your question, to your previous question, that is something I've thought about. Like, I've thought about, and I don't know that if I pursue the business side of things with my passion, which is animation.
yeah.
So if I take my passion and turn it into my own business, is that gonna give me the same fulfillment as working in, like the best studios, and like you said, being famous inside the industry, right? So I don't know. I hope it is gonna give me as much fulfillment, but
Yeah. I mean, you
it's a
obviously have so much drive
question.
and motivation to do this. Like even when you were talking about how you hired people to, do the Python and what did you say, C++ or whatever
C
scripts,
sharp, I think.
C sharp scripts, like that to me is like, as soon as you're hiring somebody to work on something, like that changes it becomes like, you're super serious in that case. And I think that's amazing. Like obviously your heart is leading you to this place. And do you feel do you feel the same feeling now that you felt when you were in high school and wanted to get into animation, and even with the opposition of your parents and pressures to not get into it, do you feel that kind of same internal feeling to do this as well? Because you know your first run, you became very successful. You're working on like one of the biggest shows in the world right now. You just finished up on that, Maya and the Three. And so like I'd say like, hey, you put your mind, sounds like when Brian puts his mind to something, you know.
That's I don't know. I don't know. It's very like subconscious brain thinking that I gotta, like, I'm like, okay, what is my subconscious thinking in like this situation? Um I don't know what it is. I don't know if I'm trying to like prove myself to anyone. I don't know.
Yeah.
That is why I went the direction that I went, but I don't know if that's why I'm still going. Um so it's a good question that I am not
I feel
sure how to
bad for
answer.
like grilling you on all this like
No, that's
stuff.
okay. This is like
Do you
I'm
want to
having like
let's lighten the chat.
epiphanies
Like
right
what do
now.
you what have you become what's your specialty in animating? Like, you're a 3D animator. I've
Sure.
watched a couple of your tutorials on YouTube and
Mhm.
like I think, I mean, from my perspective, it seems like you like animating action sequences. I
Yeah,
don't know.
yeah.
Like
Hey, you
is that your
guessed it. So
specialty? Is that
I
what you've
do.
developed a knack for?
Yeah. I mean, if I were to have a specialty, it would be like big body shot movements, big body
Okay.
mechanic movements. Sorry. I enjoy those the most, at least, compared to like subtle acting shots, which my luckily my girlfriend is favors, soft acting shots, and I'm like the
You have a
opposite.
fully
And
rounded out course and
it's
you're done.
you have no idea how everything just like clicked into place for like everything. It's just been great. It's like
Amazing.
I give her, I'm just like just give out all these ideas, and just imagine a unicorn just like just projectile vomiting paint, and then she takes that paint and makes it into a painting, and I'm like, that's what I was trying to say. It's perfect.
Amazing. So we should have her on this podcast interpreting what you're saying is what
Yeah,
I'm just
we'll
kidding.
see if she's
So
down
tell
for
me about
it.
body mechanics. Like what makes a really
Sure.
good like director's like mwah, chef's kiss on this scene? Like what do I keep in mind to like make a really good body mechanic shot work?
I think, well, timing, I think, is probably like the biggest thing for those movements, because um, there is a lot of controllers in a body, in like a full character body. But when you're doing like these big movements, you don't really have to, you don't animate everything, right? You animate silhouettes and you animate shapes.
Mhm.
And so the biggest things that matter, I think, someone could correct me, but for me, the biggest things that matter is the silhouette of the character and the timing of the character. And those are the two things you kind of want to like nail
Yeah,
when you're doing big body movements. You want the character's action to read. And
totally.
yeah,
So silhouette makes total sense to me. Like, there's so many like tips and formulas for a great silhouette, but timing
mhm.
is more of a
That one's a little harder. It's
it's
more
like
of
an
an eye.
internal thing, you just know it or
Yeah.
not. Like, what are your tips on, like, do you have to hold a silhouette for a certain amount of time before
Mhm.
you go to the next silhouette? Like, what, tell me how you make sure timing is, it looks good.
That's it's a hard question because, like you said, it's not something you just like, oh yeah, just do this and you'll be good. It's
Yeah,
more of an
always hold your pose for 1 second.
yeah, you
Done.
know, they did no. You develop an eye for it as you're animating, as you get critiqued on your animation, as you're watching animation. Just try and create a visual library in your head of
Mhm.
what looks good, what doesn't look good, and it's something you just have to develop an eye for. You
So
just want to
how
make
would I
sure,
develop an eye for it?
but by just watching, doing and watching, watching animations. When you're watching, Disney animations, try not to, just because sometimes you just kind of zone out and you're in the story. But try and watch what the characters are doing, why they're doing it, and you'll learn a lot when doing that. When just paying attention to the animation and not the story, it might help to even mute
Ah,
and watch. That'll really like take you out and have you just focus on the movement.
so what are maybe some top three things to focus on timing? Like when you're animating a character, is it like, I'm just making this up. Is it, how long a character looks at something? Is it how long they're completing an action? Like, what are the top things that you have to refine to make sure they're right?
That's a that's a good question.
I don't even know if there's an answer.
I don't
I'm
know,
just
but
trying to think, like, there's
yeah.
somebody
I
listening
mean,
right now and they're
I'll
like, my
tell
timing
you,
sucks. Like, I need to improve it. What should I work
sure.
on?
If you don't have an eye for it, ask someone who does.
So imagine
Like
I'm a student at
yeah.
TOAnimate.
Ask your instructor, like, how does the timing seem? And they'll let you know. But
Yeah, because I feel like each
so
scene you have to deconstruct itself. Be like, don't
for
hold this so
sure.
long, and the
Mhm.
focus is on it, like, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. So it's it's not like cookie cutter answer. I can't just give you a cookie cutter answer, but you want to have you want to feel the animation in the blocking stage, and you want to feel all the main poses. So once you have your main, like your golden poses in blocking, um, you want to make sure you can feel them. If you can't see them, you can feel them in the spline when you actually go
Hmm.
into like animation mode once you're out of blocking. So you want to you want to make sure you hit your golden poses. I don't know if you have to like hold them for a little bit. If it makes sense for the shot, again, I can't just give you like an answer. But if it makes sense for the shot, hold them for a little bit if you have to. But once you have golden poses, make sure you hit them and make sure it feels good. It feels fluid.
Okay.
If there is, yeah, no, I can't give you another answer because it's super dependent on the shot itself.
That's fine. That's fine. Okay, so I have a big question for you because it's something I noticed on your YouTube channel. It's just mostly curiosity for me
Yeah,
because it's
these
something,
haven't been big.
well, it's not big. I just want to ask, like, what is it like having a super active community that's pretty large on YouTube? Like every video of yours has like tons of like comments and people asking questions and stuff. Like, what is that like for an individual animator like you? Every time you post a video, there's tons of people responding to it.
it's it's good.
It's good.
No, it's fun. It's fun because I'm always curious when I'm uploading. I'm always curious. I'm like, oh, I wonder like what people are gonna talk about like with this video, or like what kind of conversations I'm gonna have with this one. And there's a few people that pretty much like comment on most videos, and they follow me and they interact, and it's nice. It actually feels like I'm creating some sort of community
Yeah.
in the animation like industry. Just it feels nice, you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
And then are you actively trying to grow your following on YouTube as well? And if so, are you like trying to keep up with trends, or like do like, are you doing like, are you SEO YouTubing to figure out what
Yeah.
people are searching for and creating videos on that? Or
It's
are you just doing your own thing?
YouTube is hard.
Yeah.
Growing on YouTube is hard, especially for a niche like animation where, like I'm sure I mean, of course,
People,
it's
the average person isn't like, I'm going to entertain myself by watching Blender tutorials
exactly.
today. It's
Yeah,
like people
exactly.
who are like,
So what like if you look at some of my earlier videos, trash. I wouldn't watch them, But like just over time, over the past like 2.5 years or so, I've just
why do
like
you say
I've
trash?
well, it's not entertaining. It's not really too entertaining. It's very
So it's just
dry
a
and
straightforward tutorial, like
yeah. So, and like
bland.
I mean, yeah, that's fine, but I feel like when you click on a tutorial where it's just like very bland and it's just going through like all the processes of like what you have to do. If it's not
Yeah.
entertaining, you want it to be a 1 to 2 minute video tops. Like you're not going to sit through that for like 15 minutes. Um, so just over time, I've picked up like on little things. I picked up on like another little thing, and I just been trying to gradually make my content a little bit better,
Yeah.
improve retention a little bit more, keep people a little bit more in the beginning. Because like for tutorials, at least the graph for retention is like, oh, they started the intro and then drop down to like 30%
Oh
viewership.
yeah. Every time I
So
watch a tutorial, if it's like, I just want to learn how to do this one thing, it's like 5 minutes of introduction. I'm like,
yeah.
dislike, like unsubscribe, go
Yeah,
away.
yeah. So I've been trying to you know uh, have more cuts in my intro, and like just try and have it less than a minute of intro and try and make it entertaining a little bit, add a little bit of personality to it, and not trying like not to promote anything right away, and um, head to the lesson, and then about a minute or two into the lesson, and again try and keep that entertaining, try and keep the lesson a little bit entertaining, maybe add some jokes, add a little bit of cringe, I don't know, and then maybe add like some sort of like promotion or whatever that you have going on, and then I continue the video.
I like it. I like it. I
But
mean,
yeah,
that is something that I feel like you can only learn from doing repeatedly over and over again, because like, there's a formula, but you kind of have to figure out the formula for yourself for what
yeah,
works in your
for
niche.
sure.
And I think that's almost another key selling feature of TOAnimate. It's like, coming from you from guys who figured out how to make entertaining, highly watched YouTube videos, you're going to take this course and it's not boring. You're going to get it right away, simple to understand,
We
be kind
learned
of
like blood,
entertained,
sweat,
versus
and
like,
tears.
yeah, versus like you go to traditional college and you're like, you got to sit through lectures that are 3 hours long
Yeah.
sometimes.
Oh
And,
yeah.
and like,
That's the other thing with institution, like just schools and stuff, and there's so much fluff. There is so much
yeah, you got to
fluff
take
and so
electives that have
much
nothing to
waste
do
of
with your
time. Yeah.
degree, because the government is wanting you to like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah, that's how I felt. Yeah, so exactly, that's a huge downside of going to like institutions like
Totally.
colleges
Yeah.
and universities. It's
Yeah.
just like you're wasting your time 70% of the time plus, and then like like even if you're like, okay, I'll say at OCAT, for example. My major was digital painting and animation, and I think I animated for like 5 to 10% of the
And was
program,
it even in
or
3D?
less. No, it wasn't even 3D. That's the thing. And even like they advertise it as 3D, but once it started 2 years in, I realized there's no, there isn't really any like.
That's
It's a
crazy. It
weird,
took you
yeah.
2 years to realize that there's,
Because I thought we'll get into it, because at Sheridan, their 4-year program, they do like life drawing, they do this, they do that, then they get into 2D, then they get into 3D on like the third or fourth year. So I thought it's gonna be something like that. And it wasn't. And so, but at that point I had to finish and get my bachelor's. So
That's crazy. That's so crazy. Like,
yeah.
you're like, please stop wasting my time.
Yeah.
But also, I feel like if you don't know what you want to do and you need structure, then a
For sure.
generalist degree program is perfect for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. If you don't know what you want to do and you're like, oh, I'm interested in 3D, but you don't know, go to an institution. But if you know, like you want to specialize in one thing and you know that, then I would really highly recommend online schools instead of institutions, because especially in our industry, in animation industry, a
Yeah,
degree doesn't matter,
you just need the skill. Get it, go.
Exactly. Like I I don't know, I was debating getting my master's just because of the postgrad I took. They offer your master's by just doing like another year of work. And I was like, oh, I can have like a master's of
I
animation.
could
That's
just give
pretty
them a
cool.
little bit more money.
Yeah, yeah. And I
Like,
was like,
please
wait a
give us more
minute,
money.
that means missing out on a year of working, on top of that, going to Ireland, because that's where the school was for the master's. And the cost of living there for a year, and add that to my salary, I'm like losing over $100,000 for this 1 year for this one master. So I just, yeah.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Well, Brian, I feel like I've grilled you on a lot of things. Is there anything that you wanted to talk about now? Or we can just
I'm curious about your background in, which you said you were working with SEO before going into animation. How did that happen?
So I didn't believe animation could be a career for me coming out of high school. So I went to business school at Laurier, did the whole COA program, graduated with a degree in specialization in marketing and brand management. Then I worked for 3.5 years in the head office of Jameson Vitamins. I was a market analyst and then an assistant brand manager. And then the next 3.5 years, I worked at a software company downtown Toronto. Started as a marketing manager and went on to be the head of SEO. And then I did consulting for a while. I went to Sheridan College actually in 2018. So I did marketing consulting for a while I was in college. So that's my.
You had a whole career, an
entire
career, start to finish. Oh my God.
Yeah, what's up?
That's amazing. That's amazing.
And here we are.
Yeah. Do you think that has helped you with what you're doing now with the podcast?
Totally.
Yeah.
I mean, totally. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. At first, my thoughts were like, I need to get rid of all of my business past because I know nothing about animation. I haven't even touched art. Like I hired a tutor to like help me put together a portfolio to get into Sheridan. Like I hadn't done any art in years. So originally I was like, I need to like put all of my business behind me. And then I was like, that's stupid. Why don't I use everything I learned just from like working in the world to like merge things? So that's, this podcast has been like, I run it every week, and it's a direct result of, an old coworker being like, why don't you start a podcast as a way of networking? And I did. And it turned into more than that, but also, I've gotten jobs through this podcast. I've been able to pitch every major broadcaster because people have, hookups to people at different places that I've interviewed. And they're like, oh, I know somebody at like Cartoon Network. Here's their contact. Or I know somebody at Netflix. Like, here you go. And I'm like, thank you.
That's amazing.
Plus it's just like, when I first decided I wanted to get into animation, I really thought I wanted to do storyboarding. I talked to like a storyboard artist, super fell in love with what she was doing. And I was like, this is me. And now I'm a stop motion animator. And I only kind of learned that through talking with people about like yourself, about, what does your future look like? Where did you start? What did you learn along the way? What is it that motivates you? And like, internalizing what people said to really understand what my own dreams were coming from and like the source of them and what actually gave me fulfillment as an animator. So it's really helped me just be more confident in what I'm pursuing and why, and also who I am. So yeah. And then there, like every time I create a project, I like market the shit out of it. Like get in touch with every animation magazine, every like social media person that reposts stuff. Like, I just go down the list and I'm like, did I contact all these people yet? And through that, like, I made a short film called The Silly Duck Wizard. And I feel like I directly manufactured the success of that. Like I like awesome. Reversed engineered a successful Reddit. Like I wanted it to hit like the top of our videos. And so I like reverse engineered like all the top posts from like the last year, and I made a headline based on those that like made it take off. It hit the front page. A director from PBS show saw it and hired me to do a whole bunch of stuff for their show. Like, so yeah, the business stuff definitely helps.
That's amazing. That is amazing.
And I'm currently trying to figure out how to like, take more control of my career and like what is starting a studio look like versus like, creating courses look like versus just being an independent. I'm still trying to figure out exactly what my immediate path is, but in the meantime, I'm pursuing whole bunch of very interesting opportunities that I can't wait to talk about,
That's
but I can't really
awesome.
yet.
So it seems like you took the opposite path, or the opposite path of me. You start from business and then you're going into art. I start from
Yeah.
art and I'm drifting into business now.
Well, like I said
That's
before,
awesome.
when I was working in the business world, I did a lot of kind of soul searching and future projecting my future and saying like, what do I want out of life? And a big thing for me was feeling fulfilled with what I was creating and putting out into the world. And I would think about all the time, like, I cannot wait until I retire to finally start making films. And then that turned into, why don't I just start making films now? And by the time I was projecting to retire, I'll maybe have some success versus like reaching success starting in like the, I don't know, 15, 25 years, and then grinding for another 10 years to even just, anyways. So like a lot of soul searching and projecting what my future would look like if I continued on this path. And so I need to like do that again to really figure out where I want to end up, I think. So even just like being in the business world where you have to project these things and forecasts, and like I was a market analyst where I would just like analyze millions of lines of sales data from all over the country to figure out what people are buying and what we should make and what's going to be successful in 10 years. And I like transfer that over to like what I'm doing, I guess. So yeah, I went through all the, you said you're reading like, financial books and like all these, figure out, that was me like 5 years ago.
Yeah, that's great. Have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad? That's a
Oh, sorry?
Have you read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
I have not. No,
That
I've
really,
read like so
that's a
many
classic
synopsises
one,
on
but
it, and I
I
get
feel
the gist of it. So I'm
I,
like, I don't need to read this whole
I
thing.
feel like at this point you're past reading that, but that's like that was the book that like started it for me. Just reading
Yeah,
Rich Dad Poor Dad really helped
totally,
shift
totally.
my
Yeah, I mean, it's like, what are the things you need
perspective.
to set up now and do, and just the simple everyday choices, even of
Mhm.
what can you do to make sure you're making the right choices. So you are, I guess, well, you've read the book, but the gist of it is like, how can you set up your future in simple ways to just live a comfortable life
Mhm.
without drastically changing what you're doing, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's basically it, and just like helps shift your mentality and start thinking about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I try to do that with my channel a little bit. I just tried introducing a little bit of finance,
Nice.
and I get a few positive comments, but just like performance wise, it does so bad. It's always like in the bottom 10 of like every time I upload. Just like
Oh
artists,
no. Well, the people that are listening, it's
yeah,
valuable for them. That's one thing I feel like, like animation and animators in general don't have much exposure to the whole world of
mhm,
like, finances,
yeah,
investing, growth, opportunities, stuff like that, which
yeah,
is like even just going to Sheridan myself, and that's all I did for years. And then to like be put in an atmosphere where like that's like a foreign language, it was just very like, why aren't we talking about this more? Like even just how
mhm,
to, successfully promote yourself as an
yeah.
artist, or like, network
Especially for
even.
artists,
Yeah,
because like it's one of the more riskier jobs, or I shouldn't say risky, I'm a little more volatile jobs,
totally.
right? And I feel like if anything, it's more important for artists to know how to financially be stable and like financially take care of themselves, because you might go through like months of not finding a job because the industry kind of moves in waves,
Yeah.
right? So yeah. Anyways, I
I
started like
think,
introducing it.
I
It's just not
mean,
working out.
maybe, I don't know, correct me if I'm wrong, because, you've worked in a studio for 4 years, but from my exposure to like Sheridan and working in studio for a short time, et cetera, there's more prestige, I guess, to put towards like becoming a better artist. And that's like the be all end all of like an animation crew.
Yeah,
Like, how
yeah,
amazing is your art? Can you get to the next level versus like you set up some simple things in the other side of the world and you can be just as successful or more successful, rather than like, you
yeah,
could be a mediocre artist doing much better, I guess.
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the thing. I think artists just either they don't think about that stuff, most artists, or they're just not interested, or I don't know. I feel like they should be interested. um it's very important, and you don't have to do much, even if it's just like some simple investing. If you just learn to invest consistently, and you don't have to think about it too much, even if it's
Totally.
like, once a
Yeah.
quarter or something. Just put some money into like an S&P 500 and just like let it grow. Like
Yes, because you put it in the bank, you're losing money.
yeah,
Like
you're losing
they're
money to
making money off of
inflation.
your
It
savings
makes
account, which is not.
exactly.
It's like because of inflation every year, you actually have less and less money.
Exactly,
Like
exactly.
just simple stuff like that.
In one of my
Okay,
videos,
welcome
I
to the
broke that
Business
down.
Finance Podcast.
Yeah, it like in one of my videos, I broke that down. I was like, listen, if you have 10K, you leave that 10K in a savings account. Here's how much you're gonna have left, which was like 9,000 something. You put that in the S&P 500, like, historically it's made inflation calculated like 8% a year.
Yeah.
You'll have like, I don't know if it was like 20 or like $30,000 by the end of it after like 10 years. I'm like, choose one, it's not that much effort.
Even just 1 year, you lose 3% by putting in savings, you make 8% by putting in the stock market.
Exactly. So you could work if a 50K job, which pays you like 50K a year. And by the time you retire, you could be a millionaire. Yeah. By just investing consistently, what you don't spend. And
totally. I mean, of course, you have to have a situation where you're able to put away money that you can't touch, essentially.
Right.
But yeah, just working, just building towards some simple things like that. I mean, maybe 10K is too much for somebody, or I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe
sure.
That's just sitting around, but totally. Yeah. And like what you're doing with schools, you're building, you're doing the grind now for something that can passively pay off in the future. You're gonna have to do maintenance and hire people and marketing, et cetera. But the majority of the work of the product you're creating now, and then essentially it's just maintenance and marketing after that.
Yeah, marketing.
So same thing with you. Yeah, and you're doing it with something you love. Yeah, and yeah. Okay, well, I don't want to take your whole night. And is there anything else that you wanted to chat about, or you think it's important to share for people listening?
Just get into finance, because trust me, like it's important. That's I feel like that's the most important thing I could say. Just get into finance on the side, learn a little bit about investing, and do what you're passionate about.
Totally. You're the first. I have over 150 episodes filmed, and you're the first person to ever say, my final thought is to get into finance. But it makes sense, like
no, honestly,
out of all the
tips, that's gonna help them the most.
Yeah, out of all the, a lot of people say like, here's a tip to follow your dreams or to get better at this thing. But I totally agree. Figuring out your finances and how to do better for yourself personally is can be a huge step up for you.
So I'm just going to cut in for a second. On top of just that security, what that security gets you is if a company is treating you bad, you can say, you know what, I had enough of this. I'm going to go jobless for 3 months if I have to find a better job, to find a place where respects you,
Totally.
You'll have that option if you're financially secure. If you don't, you'll be used and abused, and you can't do anything about it. Right. So that's why I think it's so important to, especially as an artist, to, get into finances and learn what you're doing with your money, learn how to invest, and you can do it passively. It's not even that hard. It's just, I
actually think that's incredible advice. I'm so happy you said that, because this industry is one known for burnout and stuff like that. So yeah, totally. If you are able to set yourself up financially, then you can treat yourself better in the future if things are going to shit. Yeah. All right. Well, is there anything else final that you wanted to say on top of that?
Oh yeah, head over to TOAnimate.ca, not .com, TOAnimate.ca. Find out more about our upcoming Blender animation course, releasing or pre-launching December 15th on Kickstarter. I didn't have that written anywhere. It just came out.
That was great. That was fantastic. And well, thank you so much, Brian, for coming on the chat. It's been a pleasure, and best of success with your Kickstarter. I think that's awesome.
Thank you for having me. It was a great chat.
Of course. And if you're listening and you want to follow or get in touch with Brian, of course, you can look out for his Kickstarter. Go to TOAnimate.ca. We can also check him out on Instagram at 3D Animation Hub, and I'll include both those links in the description of this chat. And that's all for now. So thank you so much for listening. Okay, bye. The music for this podcast was composed by Will Farmer and the graphics by Daniel Abensauer. I encourage you to look them up if you enjoyed their work.